I think if newspapers would have treated the internet a little bit differently, it could have been a real boon in some ways for newspapers. They sort of, generally speaking, ignored and/or, I mean, I'm going to get in trouble when this video somehow gets in my boss's hands, but the former publisher of the World Herald is somewhat infamous for literally calling the internet a fad. I mean, that was sort of the traditional, and it's not like the World Herald was the only newspaper that thought that. I mean, the New York Times thought that, the Washington Post thought that, the Chicago Tribune thought that, and they were all really, really wrong. So going forward, there's definitely ways that, I mean, if the idea is good information, well packaged, well written, well designed, online is in many ways better than print. I mean, it costs a lot to print a newspaper, right? I mean, you've seen the World Herald's gigantic, everybody thinks that's the World Herald office, that sort of beautiful glass and whatever it is, building there in downtown Omaha. That's the printing press, the Freedom Center, in fact, is what it's called. And our building is sort of the really ugly brown one that's the newsroom. That goes away maybe in 25 years, who knows? I mean, generally, right now, newspapers are caught in the middle way where generally the older readers, who are the best readers of the newspaper, our most loyal customers, they still want a newspaper. People in this class probably don't care. They will get their news online. I mean, not everyone. In fact, I actually really like newspapers, like the paper newspaper. But in 25 years, probably that printing cost goes away, maybe. And if newspapers are figuring out a way to make money off online advertising, there you go. I mean, there's a new sort of reality for newspapers, one that's cost effective in some way.
Well, I can just tell you that in the last year, I've taught a couple of courses that we'd never had on the books before. And there are probably at least a couple more that need to be developed and put on the books. But one of them is the online media class that Wendy Townley is teaching this fall, where students primarily are engaged in blogging and trying to get more adept with the social media tools that are out there. So it's not enough to have a blog. You've got to be able to promote the blog, and that's where social tools such as Twitter and Facebook come in handy. We haven't talked much about Facebook yet, but you all probably come into this thinking about Facebook from a fairly social, friend-oriented perspective. People like me, I think people like the newspaper, are beginning to think about it as a way to reach people with messages, as a way to promote what's out there, what's in the paper, what's on radio. I know KFAB every morning now promotes who their guests are on Facebook. So that's one course, is kind of the online media course that captures all of what's happening with that. And then last summer we launched a social media metrics course, which more ties into kind of the marketing aspects of, really from a business perspective, how you can actually study your social network and understand who the opinion leaders are, for example. So that class worked with a real-world client, Abby Jordan, who's a co-owner of E-Creamery up in Dundee, and we also worked with Todd Murphy and Gina Svensson, an alum of our program, from Universal Information Services, a company that was a traditional newspaper clipping company in the old days, went to a video service for PR people that when they get their stories in the news to be able to have a video copy of them. Well, now they're tracking activity on social networks. And so our students who are going out into the public relations and advertising area now often have journalism skills, and PR advertising is our largest sequence in the School of Communication. Those students are working now with products like Radian 6, where you're really trying to capture what what we see online in terms of the activity. So all of that is opening doors, but it is a shift from what traditional journalism and mass communication education have been in the past. I'll say one more thing. There was a somewhat, I guess shocking is the only word to put on it. You know, Matthew talked about earlier what's happening in newspapers and how they're fighting for their survival. A number of the faculty just had come back from Denver from the meeting of the Association for Education in Journalism and Mass Communication when it was announced that the chancellor at University of Colorado Boulder, you know, big university, right, wants to essentially dissolve, that's not exactly the word that they use, it's a legal term, but at any rate, basically eliminate the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, perhaps remake it around technology and information. So I don't know anybody in any field that isn't being impacted by this.
I think if you want to be a journalist, there's a couple of things you can do, and actually a couple really nice opportunities that you have by the fact that you're being educated right now, and by you know, sort of the generation in which many of you grew up in. Two things. One, definitely working for the, I didn't go to UNO, but I worked for the college newspaper where I went, and it's the reason that I'm in journalism now. There's no better way to sort of prepare for a career in journalism than do it while you're in college. And it's sort of the litmus test too. I mean, you know, it's easy to say, well, I want to be a reporter when I leave here. You're probably not going to be a reporter when you leave here unless you're a reporter while you're here. That doesn't have to be at the newspaper, but it has to be at some sort of media outlet where you can learn from other people who are doing similar things. Now, the real opportunity you have is that most people in newsrooms in this country do not understand technology. They're fearful of it, in fact. And that doesn't necessarily have that much to even do with generations or ages. I mean, you know, even for myself, I was educated, you know, in a journalism program where we didn't, we still weren't using digital cameras when I took photojournalism. Where the idea of convergence was sort of still being, you know, it was sort of a nasty term that especially the news ed professors really didn't like. I mean, they would roll their eyes sort of at any mention of this. You guys can learn video, you can learn audio, you understand the internet, you understand the possibilities of the internet, you understand the financial opportunities of the internet, you know, that's your chance. I mean, it's sort of, the idea is to get as many tools as you can while you're here, and as you've you know, sort of learned this just by being where you are in this current time and place, and it's going to give you a real leg up in a lot of ways. Now, it's pretty hard to get a job at a newspaper right now, but I don't think that's necessarily where the future is. I mean, that's not where I would be looking for a job if I were currently a college student. You know, I would be looking for opportunities. I mean, I definitely come from a writing background. That's what I would want to do. I would be looking for opportunities with an online publication of some sort. And I do. I think, you know, I don't know about how much money you're going to be able to make right off the bat. You know, who knows about the financial situation of places like that. But I think long term, it's a real opportunity for you guys.
To piggyback on that, I mean, the great thing about being trained as a journalist, I always thought when I was practicing and on a daily basis, was that those skills transfer into just about anything that you might want to do. I mean, if you can write, if you can communicate, I mean, the obvious one is a lot of our students take journalism skills and find work in public relations and corporate communication. But really, I mean, I can think of how those skills, and my job today as a professor and director of the school, I use my journalism skills literally every hour, because I'm trying to sort of sort out a whole bunch of pieces of information and make sense out of them and put them into some kind of context, whatever that might be. So those skills work in business, they work anywhere. So it's just a good, as you said, tool. I talk about the tool bag. Put as many tools in that tool bag as you can right now.
Just kind of piggyback on that, for any of you who are thinking about a major within the School of Communication, and we have majors in speech communication, broadcasting, and journalism, and then kind of subtracts in some of those different areas. We're in the process of reviewing our curriculum right now and maybe doing some fairly substantial overhauls within the next couple of years. But I think even within our existing programs, there are lots of rooms for electives. And so again, I would just say, give yourself as diverse a skills as you can. If you're a broadcasting major, make sure you're also taking some print style writing classes perhaps, or taking a PR class. You know, the skills, as Dr. Lipschultz was saying, kind of cross over in a lot of different areas. So I would just attempt to expose yourself to lots and lots of different things while you're still in school, if you're looking at that as a career route at all.